Hi, everyone, and welcome to Acting Sessions. I am your host, Marco DiGeorge, and I am the co founder and instructor at Truthful Acting Studios. We are an acting conservatory located in Orlando, Florida. And from time to time, we like to come on and conduct these sessions to give you insight and input into the acting industry. All things from industry topics to acting itself and to anything else that we really want to talk about. So today, as we're live, for those of you who are on with us, you can also use the chat feature. And just if you have any questions, input, anything you'd like to share, please go ahead and put that into the chat, and I will do my best to answer all of your questions live while we're here, during the time that we have. Okay, I'll try to get through everything. And today's topic is, kind of more of a general industry Q&A. And what I realize is as I do other topics, sometimes I get submitted all of these other types of questions that don't fit into that session's topic. And so it's like, okay, well, today I just wanted more of a general topic, answer all of your questions as broad as they are across the industry. And we're going to go through and see how many we can answer in the allotted time. Our admin is Samantha DiGeorge. She's also on, so you'll be corresponding with her in the chat if you're involved in that way. So first of all, again, just welcome. It's good to have you here. I love talking to other actors in the industry and everyone around the world who just is excited about acting. To me, acting is a passion. It's something that I've loved for a very long time, and I still love it today. It's something that evolves. Acting, just like all art, is not ever something we reach a destination at, but it's something that continues to grow over time and evolve with us as a human being. And that's one of the reasons I love the art form, is that the learning aspect of it and the evolution aspect of it never ends. It's a continuing journey, a continuing exploration, and I personally just love, love, love that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with some questions that were submitted to me ahead of time. And again, if you have any questions or anything that you would like to know as well, please go ahead and put it in the chat, and I will get to those as well. So the first question that was submitted to me, it says, how do you know what acting class, program, or agent is right for you when you are just starting out, especially with no experience and knowing nothing about the industry? Okay, all right, this is probably a really good place to start out as well. So the first thing is, first of all, just know, if some of you out there have never done anything before, you haven't acted or haven't taken a class or you haven't really done anything, just know that we all start out the same way. Every actor, everyone in the industry starts out without having any experience. Now, that's at different ages. Some people gain experience through school, whether it's elementary school, middle school, high school, college. Some people go through in their schooling and may take a drama class, an acting class, a theater class, even film. You might do some of that while you are studying. But then there are several others who through school don't study acting and then want to afterwards, right? Maybe while you're in your 20s, you want to study acting. And then there's another group that you study, you go to school, you get out of school, and then you go into the workforce, you start a family, you do life, basically. And then somewhere in that process, you're like, you know what? I've always wanted to do this. And one of the questions is it too late? No, it's not at all. You can do it at any age. And at our studio, we teach actors we start at 16, so in the teen years, and we go all the way up into the 80s. We have some actors that are. So it's literally all ages, which is awesome. So first of all, that's what I wanted to just address, that we all start with no experience, and that's okay. That's okay, because acting is a skill that is learnable, and you can start at whatever point of life that you're in. That's the beauty of acting. Now, how do you know what acting class, program, agent, how do you know what's right for you? Well, this is a little more difficult because you have to do some research. And you have to go and especially, we'll start with acting classes, right? Because that's what our studio is as well. And when you're looking for an acting class, to me, it's not necessarily about the school or the name of the school or even the process that they teach. It's more about, do you align with the philosophy of the school? And more importantly, do you align with the instructor, with how they teach, and the philosophy of that particular instructor? Because you can go to maybe a bigger conservatory and it has name recognition. However, if you don't align with the philosophy, their underlying philosophy, if you don't align with some of the instructors, it's still going to be difficult to learn. To me, acting is so personal that you have to have a good relationship with whoever is guiding you, because you're going to be going into some very vulnerable places, some very personal places, and you want to feel safe while you're doing so. As far as methodology, there are several different approaches to acting. What we do at Truthful Acting, it's based in, majorly, it's based in something called the Meisner approach. And then it's also, we use part Meisner, part Adler, a lot of Stanislavski. I mean, there's a lot of different things in there. And then, quite a bit of classical training as well, which is what is taught primarily in Europe, in Australia, and in some other places. And so ours is kind of a hybrid, but it is primarily focused on something called the Sanford-Meisner approach. And it's a philosophy that we feel is one of the safest to use as an actor, and also one of the most accessible as an actor. And one of the things I love about it is it also works on you as a human being at the same time it's working on you as an actor. And so you can grow in both areas. And I really, really, really appreciate that. So part of that is, from time to time, we have open houses at our studio. So it's like, oh, we'll come out and see our studio, meet the instructors, meet the team. You can talk to past students. That's a good way of going to a school and figuring out, is this right for me? The other thing is looking at reviews and talking to past students. I think that's a really important thing to do as well. What I like to do, these free sessions, you come on, you get to know me a little bit. You get to see my teaching style. And it's like, well, does that align with what I want? That's really going to be the most important thing, is starting out. Now, once you get into an acting class or a program, that will then help take you the rest of the way. Hopefully, if it's a comprehensive program, then they will teach you about agents. They will teach you about putting together a resume. They will teach you about how to take a proper headshot. They're going to teach you how to navigate the industry, how to conduct auditions, all of those different types of things. And so getting in and working with the right instructor can then lead you along the path to doing everything else. Especially agents. Agents are something that you want to have some training with, training first, and then you'll go and submit to an agency. So that's kind of how that works. So don't worry if you have no experience. Start studying. Take things like this that are free that you can do, and then involve yourself in a class. But do your research. Do your research. Make sure the class and the philosophy align with you, and then just get involved. Get involved and start learning the process. It's the best advice I can really give on that. Okay, so the next question. So we're switching over to script now, because the next question is, what is subtext in a script, and what is a good example? So the term subtext, and you might have heard this term before, it's a common term used in acting. And subtext means below the text, like literally it's subtext, below text. And what that means is that when we're looking at a script, the script is typically the dialogue of what's on the page, right? It's, as an actor, it's what we have to learn, what we have to say. So that's what we consider the script, right? It's the story, it's the plot, it's all of the basics. Well, then there's something called subtext, which is, okay, what lies underneath that is motivating us as a character to say these things? Because really, it's not about the words on the page. It's about what are making those words necessary to say right now. As a human being, why am I saying this? What is my need to say it? What is bringing me into this situation? What am I fighting for? What must I achieve? What am I doing with these words as it relates to the people around me? All of that life is called subtext. So a reaction to something being said to me, well, the reaction is subtext. It's below the text. It's not in the words themselves. It's in the life that is being lived underneath the words. The life is what we bring as an actor. So what we like to say is, okay, well, if we're looking at a script, the acting doesn't occur when we're speaking the words. The acting occurs in all of that white space around the words. It's when we're not speaking is when we're truly acting, because that's when we truly need to be living. The subtext is more important than the words. And not saying the words aren't important, but if we don't have the life underneath it, we're merely reciting dialogue. And then that will come across as flat. That will be unmotivated. But we need to have the proper motivation, meaning we need to have the life, the feeling, the meaning, the importance, the fight of what we're trying to get in this moment. And then we bring that to the words. Now when we say the words, there's an importance to it. There's something we're trying to accomplish by saying this line of dialogue. And maybe it's getting my partner on my side, right? My scene partner. I need to convince them of something. I'm going to use these words to do that. I want to make them feel a certain way. Maybe I'm trying to get my partner to feel guilty for something they've done. I want to get them to apologize to me. Or maybe I'm trying to get them to forgive me for something I've done. Either way, there's an action that is occurring. There's importance, there's relationship, and there's something I'm fighting for in every single scene, in every single moment of every single scene. That's the basics of dramatic narrative: is conflict, is fight, is meaning, is importance, is intention, all of those different things. So subtext is simply that. It's the life that we create beneath the scene, beneath the surface of it. All the things we feel on the inside that then lead us to say the text that's written in a script. And really, when you watch, as far as examples of it, you can watch any sort of big TV show or movie, play, and you can see examples of that subtext all the time. Look at reactions of characters, of when they have a silent reaction to something. So if someone says something to me, and it's like, and I roll my eyes, that's a reaction. That's subtext. Right? Or even if someone's talking to me, another character's talking to me, and I'm nodding along, that's subtext. I'm agreeing with that person. I'm listening and then agreeing. I'm having an actual reaction to what is being said. All of that is subtext. It's the feeling that's happening on the inside of the character. All of that motivating stuff. In film, the camera comes in really close even, and you see it right in the eyes. You see what somebody is thinking. You see what somebody is feeling right through their eyes. All of that is subtext. So as you look for examples, the next time you watch a TV show or a movie, just look for that. Look for those silent moments, the moments between the dialogue, and see if you can see the life that is occurring that is leading them to then say their next line or whatever's happening. And that is subtext. Okay, so next question. What is the most effective way to become a great actor for a beginner? Okay, so this is a very common type of question that I receive is, I'm a beginner, but I want to be great. How do I get into the industry? How do I start out? How do I, how do I go from where I'm starting to where I'm ending to? And so there's a couple thoughts I have on that. First of all, I want you to think of acting as a journey and not a destination. So really that goes to life. That's a good lesson in life as well. But in your acting specifically, in your art form, there's never any place we arrive at. And sometimes when we start out acting, it's like, oh, well, when I'm in Hollywood or when I'm acting on, London's West End stage or when I'm, when this happens, when that happens, then I'll feel I'm successful. But really, if you're always aimed at the destination, you're going to miss the importance of the journey itself. And with acting, just like many other art forms, we never finish the journey. It's all about the journey. We're always learning, we're always evolving. Even the great actors that have been working for 40 plus years in the industry are still learning and evolving as actors. Because even though they've been acting for a long time, they've never done it at this age. They've never done it at this stage in their life. Because who they were yesterday is not the same person they are today. And with acting, it's all about using who we are right now in this moment, and then we bring that to the character. So that's where there's an evolution. So first of all, I just want you to just put inside your mind, you can be acting throughout your entire life, throughout your entire career. The journey never ends. So we must learn to love the journey. Because once you learn to love the journey of acting, meaning wherever you are, you get to do this thing, whether it's in a class, whether it's in a student film, whether it's in community theater, all the way up to professional film, professional theater. If you, your entire journey of acting, you get to do this thing you love. So when you embrace that, that immediately changes the focus of it, and that allows you to feel successful regardless of wherever you are in the process. And I think that's just very, very important. So then going on to, well, how do we start out, and then what do we do during that journey? You train. You train, you train, you train. That's that's it, right? It's like how do we become great is you train to become great. Because acting is a skill that takes years to learn. It's not something you're going to learn over a summer. It's not something that you're born with. It's not something that you're going to pick up very quickly. There may be pieces of it that you are just more aligned with, but there's so much to learn in acting that you have to train, 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 train. When we look at the great actors from Europe or Australia or South America, like other, outside of the U.S. We look at the great actors and even some great actors that come out of the U.S. All you need to do is look at their training. It's like, okay, I love watching them in a movie, or I love watching them on stage, but how did they get there? And if nowadays we can easily look that up. When you look at their training and their journey of how they got there, you're going to be like, wow, look at all of this training they did. Look at all of this work in theater they did. Even your great film actors did a lot of work in theater. Look at all of this stuff they did that I never knew about. They've either gone to a conservatory. A conservatory is simply it's a focused school that is in the arts. So Truthful Acting Studios is a conservatory. Actors study with us for 3 to 4 years as they're learning all of the different pieces of the craft. And in the States we have several. Many of the good ones are in New York. You can in LA and Chicago. Ours is in Orlando. You can find focused areas, conservatories, kind of all over, and especially all over the world. So you want to train at a deep level to do this, because we have to focus our mind and learn how to have extreme focus mentally, analytically. How to break down a script, how to do comprehension of a script, those type of things, how to have outward focus. That's all mental. We have to work on our psychology. We have to understand human behavior as good as anyone else. Because when we step into character, that's what we're doing. We're understanding human behavior, and then we're aligning ourselves with a certain type of behavior, a certain type of psychology, which is of the character. We need to learn emotion, our emotional life, the ability for us to process emotion and then the ability for us to feel it, and then, and more importantly, the ability for us to express it, which is very, very difficult to do, but we have to learn how to be very efficient on that. And on top of that, we need to learn physicality, how to change and adapt ourselves to different physicalities of the character, how they move, how they walk, how they stand, all of those things. And then voice. Every character has a different voice. Every character speaks with a different tone or a different pacing, all of that. So it's important that we learn all of that. And then finally, there's one final pillar of acting, and it's called technical. And it's everything else that we kind of learn to make it more specific. So the best way to become an actor and then become a great actor is to start training and never stop. Never stop working on your craft, no matter what you do. All right, I have a question here in the chat, so I want to take that on. It says, is there a different path for acting for a TV series versus movies? And also, do you have to have a certain number of classes to audition for a movie or TV? Okay, yeah, thank you for that question. That's a good one. So, first of all, let me say that there's not a different path initially for actors for TV, film, or even theater. Acting training is acting training, like meaning acting is acting is acting. Not to say you won't find classes, around the world, and especially here in the U.S., you will find classes that will say, well, we're study film acting here. And really what they're teaching you is more of technique, like the technical side of it, versus teaching you the deep level process. When you get into deep level process, which is what the conservatories teach, which is what you'll find in London, you'll find in Australia, South America, when you go into the deeper level process, acting is acting is acting. It's all the same thing underneath. It's then technical. It's a layer on top that we apply then for TV or film or theater. But really, theater is the basis of all acting. Meaning that's the process. If you go study theater, that's the general deeper level process that you apply to all of it. So TV is typically single camera, maybe maybe two cameras, but it's kind of done one shot at a time. It's done in these slivers. Any sort of dramatic narrative on TV is done the same way. So they're filmed in a similar way. If you're doing maybe sitcom, it's a little different. Anything that's more live or hosted, that's a little different because now you have multi-cameras that you're working with. But that's a technical thing you'll get further down the line. But your basis for all of your acting is going to be the same. So, for example, if you studied with us, we have something called the Master Meisner program. It's 8 months, and it's divided into 2 semesters. You take 2 4-month semesters, and that's going to give you a foundation that then can be applied to theater, film, television, and even public speaking, live events, like all sorts of different things. You can then apply that because it's really based in allowing yourself to be grounded in a moment, to have outward focus, to really say things, to have real reactions to things, to feel deeply. I mean, all of that. And that applies to all characterization across the board. Now, as far as you have to have so many classes to audition, it depends. So when students are first starting out, I recommend that they do either student film or community theater. Student film is just that. If there's a university near you, many universities, let's say, will have a film program, meaning students go to this program and they're studying how to be filmmakers. They're studying the directing side of it. And part of that is they need to make films for classes as they're learning how to put that together. And they generally need actors to volunteer their time for their films. And it's such an amazing training ground as an actor to simply be involved in an actual film production. You learn so much, and there's very low risk because it's being done for a class. It's not being done for an investor. So there's quite a bit of opportunity. So I highly recommend student film. Beyond student film, there's something called independent film. Independent film is a little more risk, but these are groups of filmmakers that are coming together outside of schooling and that are putting together a film and are looking for actors. Much of that is volunteer work as well, but you get to possibly do something a little bigger than what you would do in a student film. And then community theater. Community theater located all over the world in different ways, but they're basically theaters that are put on by the community. They're again volunteer based. Usually, everyone involved in it is volunteering at some level, but it's about putting on theater for the local community, which is different than professional theater as you would find in New York or Chicago or London or all of these different areas. Professional theater where the community is spending a lot of money to go see that, and everyone involved is paid a wage to do that. So community theater is a great place to get involved because again, there's lower risk. So you can start applying the skills to these things pretty quickly. So when actors come to us and they start our program, we generally tell them to wait until after the first 8 months and then start applying that work. However, you could even start applying it sooner than that. But but by the time you have that first 8 months done, you'll have enough to go out and compete, and then you get experience in this world. In community theater, student film, you get experience, and then that builds a resume, which then allows you to go to an agent and say, look, I have this training and I have this experience so far. Can you are you willing to sign me, right? You sign with an agent, and then the agent's job is then to send you on auditions for bigger, more professional things, TV shows, movies, those type of things. So that's really kind of how the process works. And it's not that it's a certain number of classes, but agents typically want to see that you've done something for your craft before they sign you on. So that's really where that comes from. But there's no exact time frame. Some actors are ready sooner than others. I have actors that have been studying for a couple years and then they're ready, and I have actors that have been studying for a couple months and then they feel ready. And so that's one of the things we try to help you with when you're studying with us is is talking through when is it ready for you to be out there actually acting in the world. So thank you again for that question. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay, all right. So this is another question that I do receive quite often, and it's what are some of the best ways to get into the industry if you don't have money? So that's a really good and legitimate question because not everyone has the means to get into acting or to spend the type of money that conservatories cost, training costs. First thing I would say, if you're school aged of any type, whether it's middle school, high school, university, take an acting class there. If that's covered, if you have financial aid or grants or anything else that are helping you with that, if you're already in the system, then take acting classes, film classes, theater classes, anything you can while you're already in that system. That will help you out and at least give you a beginning. Beyond that, what I would say is you do need to train in some way. And most actors start out without money. And of course, I know there's variations of that, of course, but many, many, many actors, it's difficult to be an artist. And really, the vocation of going into art, you must love the art. Do it because you love being an artist. We don't want to get into this industry for the money because the truth is it takes a while to actually make money in this industry. So it's better, you want to be into this industry because you absolutely have a passion for it. And then, because if you have a passion for it, you will find a way to make it work. Now, it means you might have to save up a little bit of money for a while and then take a class. It means you might have to take on a couple of different part-time jobs or whatever it may be to save up to take a class. But but studying and taking a class is essential. Now, in the meantime, there are things like this that are free that you can take. I try to give as much information as I can on these sessions. So I would recommend doing things like this. We also have something called Truthful Acting Online, which is a highly reduced cost, but it's kind of a work at your own pace. It's me talking to you about acting, going into depth of different things, and kind of guiding you along the way of things that maybe you can even do at home. And so we offer that at a much lower cost than if you were studying live with us. So there are lower cost options for you out there. But acting, just like all of the art forms, do require sacrifice. And a monetary sacrifice is one of those things, meaning reducing. This is one of the talks I have with my students. They're like, well, how do I go? I work a full-time job, and that allows me to take classes, but how do I get into the industry, or how do I not work the full-time job? And I'm like, well, for a while you have to. For a while you have to do both. You have to work as much as you can to generate the money, and then you do acting on the side, or in addition to that, as much as you can. And yes, your weeks are intense. And yes, you're right, you're very tired all the time. It's like everyone in this industry. But eventually, things will start happening. Eventually, you'll book a commercial that will make money. It's like, oh, okay, I can now maybe do commercial work to supplement this. Eventually, you'll get paid to do theater, or you'll get paid for smaller roles in TV and film, and that begins to supplement your money. And then slowly, you can then transition and move from working whatever other job you had into working as an actor. So it's a slow transition. In the meantime, though, what I like to tell my students is reduce your monthly expenses. Try to reduce the costs, the money that you have to spend on a monthly basis. Try to reduce that. If you're used to going out to eat all the time, maybe pull back a little bit on that and save that extra money. If you're used to, if you're looking for a car, like let's say, many of my students are like, oh, I need a car. Great, get a used one, not a new one. Right? Reduce your payments. Because the more money you have to spend every month, that means the more money you have to earn, and it's going to lower the amount of time you have to put into your craft. Because it takes a while. So it does take some sacrifice, meaning we sacrifice in other areas of things that we might want to do or feel like we want to have. And it's like, well, okay, you have to make a choice. Do you want to have this, or do you want to continue to work on your acting? And those are some difficult choices that we have to make sometimes. But that's the best way to do this, is find a way in. Books. Get books on acting. There are several great books out there. Learn as much as you possibly can. So that's my best advice on that. Okay, so I just wanted, let's see, we have something in the chat. It says, since the last meeting, I went and got an audition for a local theater and got the main role. Congratulations on that. Oh, I'm very excited to hear that. I'm kind of afraid because I do not have formal education on acting, but look forward for the classes here. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I like to give snaps to all of my students that have great news like that. That's amazing for your creative journey. You went to the audition, which is a big deal. That's a big step, just going to it. And in addition to going to the audition, you got the role. So a couple just quick things on that. First of all, memorize, right? Begin, like immediately if you haven't already. Memorize, memorize, memorize. Work on the words. That's the main thing that creates fear in actors, is not knowing their lines. And we all have, even as actors, we have these actor dreams where it's showtime and we don't know any of our lines. That's a very common dream. I know I've had it. And so, yeah, memorize, memorize, memorize. That will help get you out of your head and at least into the moment. The more you work on memorization, the more it will serve you. So really make sure you're doing that. And then the simplest other thing I can tell you is really talk. Like, really say these words as truthfully as you can when you're talking to someone else on stage. Like, really say them. Really mean them when you say them. And now the more you're memorized, the more it's going to give you the ability to really say words to somebody else, and then really listen when somebody else is talking to you. Like, really take it in as if it's happening now for the first time. And then allow the director to guide you. A director in theater, that's their job, is to guide you into everything that you need to do. So put as much work into this as you possibly can, and I would love to hear back from you even again in the future. I would love to know how it's going and and what happens. I'm really excited for you though, so please keep us informed on how that goes. All right, so the next question. When someone is trained as a stage actor and then they branch into film, what are some of the biggest difficulties they may face? Okay, great question. So, first of all, because we get this, right? We want to work in film, but we're working in stage. Really, there's really not a difference between stage acting and film acting as it relates to the foundation. Acting is acting is acting. And it's only been in the past few decades that they've separated this out and they've said, oh, you're going to train for stage or you're going to train for film. And it's like, no. Because if you look, again, you go to Europe or Australia or some of these bigger conservatories, there is no difference. There's just acting. And then when you get to a certain point, then you apply film television technique to the top of it. But acting is acting is acting. And the secret to that, what I'd like to tell my students is all acting is stage acting. All acting is stage acting. And why I say that is because we, the actor, even on a film set, are still acting live. It's still happening now for us in this moment. It's us that are there working. We're just working on a different type of stage, but it's still a stage. So really, it's only the technical levels on top. So if you're trained as a stage actor, that's how you need to be trained. Because actors that train directly into film miss a whole different foundational thing that is needed when you get to the upper levels. So, and you can't learn that within film. It's very difficult to. Stage teaches us how to exist in a moment. Stage teaches us that the show must go on, which means whatever happens within the stage show, let's say we get thrown off with our lines, let's say a prop breaks, let's say the door on the set falls down. I mean, who knows? There's things that happen in theater all the time. The show must go on. We don't stop. We stay in the life of the character and we keep moving the story forward because there's a live audience watching us. And that's something you can only get in theater. That level of training, plus rehearsal and process. So when you're training in theater to go live on a stage, you have to memorize your lines fully because you're going to be standing in front of an audience, and you don't want to be worried about the lines when you're live with an audience. You have to have everything ready to go. You're blocking your movement. I mean, there's so much work you do to stand on that stage. And if you develop a process for that and then just simply take that process and bring it to film, you're going to be well ahead of the game. So that's what I want to say first about that. Stage acting is, to me, I believe, necessary for all acting. Not that you have to be a theater actor, but you have to train in that way. Now, second to that is, what are some difficulties? Like, what are the differences? The main difference is when we're standing on stage, it's a bigger environment. So we're live on a big platform, and there's a live audience out there. And depending on the size of the theater, it might be a pretty long distance between the stage and the back row. Our job is to make sure that everyone in the theater can hear us. Typically in community theater, we don't have microphones or anything else, so we have to do it with our voice. We have to make sure every single person in that environment can hear us clearly. So we learn how to project. We learn how to have a strong resonance with our voice, how to really put it out there. Also, we're typically a little bigger with our gestures. We're a little bigger with how we take things in, simply because we need the audience, which is seated further away from us, to be able to see all of that. So we allow ourselves to physically express more in theater. Where in film, we bring all of that down because the camera is right on top of us, very close to us. It's seeing us at a closer thing. So what we do is we learn how to take all of that and then we internalize it. We still have it, but we internalize. We bring it on the inside and the camera sees it in the eyes. So instead of all these big gestures physically, we can bring that in and have subtle gestures. it's not as difficult to do going from stage to film. It's more difficult going from film to stage. But going from stage to film, we just learn how to bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. We internalize it. Instead of going bigger, we go deeper inside of us. And that's really the biggest thing, is learning how to be still, learning how to exist in this moment, and everything comes through the eyes. And then so typically when you take film classes at a conservatory, it's after you've learned a foundation, and then that's what they teach you. They teach you stillness. They teach you how to bring it all out through the eyes. So when you're in a close-up shot, you don't have to have a lot of movement, but you can still bring all of that feeling right there. But then, the camera really just replaces the audience. That's really the difference. When we're in stage, we're playing to the audience. They need to see us. In film or television, we're playing to the camera. The camera needs to see us. So that's what we need to be in tune with. So those are the big differences. And of course, in stage, you live the life all the way through, meaning the play starts and then you live all that life until the play ends. We go through the whole thing, where in film, it's sliver by sliver by sliver. We shoot just a very small chunk, meaning a couple lines at a time. And then all of that is edited together later. It's stitched together later to make it look like it was all happening at once. So, but those are the biggest differences. And yeah, it can be done. All right, so a couple other questions in the chat. Let me jump back over there. So first is, what is the main difference between method and Meisner? Okay, so there are some different major approaches to acting out there, named approaches. And so it starts with somebody named Konstantin Stanislavski, who's a Russian actor and director back in the turn of the century 1900s. So back in early 1900s, that's really where our biggest change in acting occurred. And there were a few people involved in this, but Stanislavski pretty much gets all of the credit for it. And really the difference was, if we go back, hundreds of years ago, if we go even into, Greek Roman theaters, acting was very representational. Representational meaning we'd have big gestures for things, and there'd be a narrator walking it through. Many performances were masked, meaning that the audience would have to kind of imagine what was happening, and the actors were there just to go into the different positions of gestures. That's really kind of where that theater started, and slowly it evolved into something that was more natural. Well, Stanislavski wanted to bring it not only natural, but he wanted it to feel real. And nothing in acting is real, first of all. It's all imaginary, and it's all, pretend to some level. But what he meant is, how far could I commit to something so someone that's watching it feels that this is actually real happening right now? And he experimented with many different things, and he wanted to just try to see what would it take to convince an audience that this was really happening. And so he developed new techniques that were based in psychology and sociology. So instead of just based in acting process that was more technical, he said, no, what is the psychology of a human being, and what makes us really believe what someone else is saying or doing? And so he developed a whole new process that then was showcased in the Moscow Arts Theater, and it was showcased to the rest of the world. And so we had something here in the early to mid 1900s called the group theater. And it was just a group of artists that came together to direct and act and write and all of that. They saw this and said, my God, this is amazing. This is, I feel like what I'm watching is actually happening. It's real. It's nothing like we've ever had here in the States before. And part of that was Stella Adler, Sanford Meisner, and Lee Strasberg, amongst many others. But those are the three that went on to develop acting approaches in the U.S. that then branched out even worldwide. And so the main thing was they worked together for a long time in trying to get the actors into this very truthful response. But then they disagreed on one point, and it was something Stanislavski used early on, and then later he got rid of. But it was something that when the group theater got a hold of, there was a disagreement. And it's this thing called effective memory or emotional recall. Now, emotional recall is psychological tool that says if you've had something traumatic happen in your life, you could go back, and I say traumatic, it could really be anything, but in the purposes of acting, it's usually traumatic. You would go back to that memory of this trauma and you would visualize it. Visualize it means that you relive it. It's a sensory experience where you go back to that memory and you can feel it, taste it, smell it. I mean, it's as if you're there. And then you channel all of these deeper memories, feelings, emotion from that trauma and you bring them back up. And then you take them and you channel them into the performance. Now, psychologically, does it work? Yeah, it does. And that's a technique that's used by psychologists in trauma therapy to guide you away and have you face certain things and have you work through it. It's a psychological tool. It's not an acting tool. And the problem is it was turned into an acting tool. And what they found, what Stanislavski found, was by guiding his actors in this way, they would be emotionally traumatized and some of them would actually have nervous breakdowns and even need to be hospitalized. That's how traumatic it was for the actors, which is why he abandoned it and went on to imagination. Well, over in the US, you had Stella Adler and Sanford Meisner that says this is dangerous. We are not going to use this with actors. Lee Strasberg said, no, it's too powerful of a tool. I'm not going to abandon it. I'm going to improve on it, and we're still going to use it. Lee Strasberg felt that the performance was the most important thing, and even if an actor had to sacrifice something even personal for it, it was necessary. Sanford Meisner and Stella Adler did not believe that. They said, no, safety is more important. Our actors are not rats in a cage to experiment on. And so, which is what Meisner actually said, was one of his quotes. And so that's where they disbanded. So when we talk about the method, the Lee Strasberg redeveloped his an entire process. It's an entire process. I mean, but the core of it is this thing called emotional recall and then effective memory, which is based on the memory of emotion. And he then sold it as something called the method, which is what Stanislavski initially called it. And so that's where method acting came from. It's still taught today, and I personally find it to be one of the most dangerous things in the acting industry today. Sanford Meisner and Stella Adler went on to use imagination work. So in the Meisner approach, we do not use real events from our past. First of all, they're in our past. They don't relate to who we are today. Second of all, if I'm guiding an actor and I open up an old wound, I have no way to put it back together. The actor has no way to put it back together instead of going back to therapy or continuing therapy, whatever it may be. So we don't want to do that. And third, it's not fun. It's not fun as an actor to deal in that way, and it's not fun as a director to work with actors like that. It's just not fun. So I'm a big believer in imagination work. I think it's more powerful. I think it's more effective, and it's safe to the actor. So we can all have fun. You can actually have fun going to a traumatic moment in a film or a play. Because when it's done, you can disconnect, which is what I teach actors how to do as well, to step into the life, but then also step out of the life. And when, as an actor, when you do that, kind of the restrictions come off. You feel so safe doing so that that you're more willing to take risks. So that's really the biggest difference between Method and Meisner, is that core belief of really using the self, to me, in a dangerous way. I mean, I'm sure there's the counter argument where they would say it's not, but I promise you it is. Psychology is something that I know probably as good as anything, and I can tell you from a behavioral psychological standpoint, it is damaging to the actor, which then can be damaging to those around them. And Meisner is just my love, but there's Adler, there's Uta Hagen, there's other methodologies, there's classical training, there's so many different ways that still use the same thing. They use imagination work, which keeps the actor safe during the process. So that would be the biggest thing I would want all of you to understand. Please be safe when you're acting. Acting should never, it's difficult. It can be stressful at times, but it should never be damaging. And my rule of thumb to my actors is if you're acting in a scene and you end up taking that home with you, the emotional reactions, if you end up taking like the stress of the character, the weight of the character, if you can't disconnect, then we're working in an unsafe way. And so that's kind of our barometer of how to do that. So hopefully that answers your question. And then one last question we have here in the chat. I would like to study acting in another country with more opportunities to grow up in that, but I don't have any money and I don't know a lot about that world. Okay, so first of all, it depends what country you're coming from as well. There are many countries around the world where you can study acting. So the U.S. has many opportunities, good quality training that you can study in. Canada has wonderful training in acting. Europe is filled with opportunities as an actor. Australia, New Zealand, the many countries in South America. So really, all over the world, you can study acting. And once again, it comes down to what I was saying earlier. Make sure that you align with the training. Now, one of the new things that has occurred ever since we had the global pandemic is the use of online for training. So I know even at our studio, we offer the foundational courses, which is Meisner 1 and Meisner 2. We offer them as an online option. Online meaning you can be live with us on a Zoom session. You can be live with us. You can look into the class. You can see, you can hear us. We can see you. We can hear you. It's not the same necessarily as being in person, of course not, but we try to make it as personal as we possibly can. We make you as part of the class. And so we offer that, and there are many other studios that offer something similar where you have a live online seat, and that allows you to study from wherever you are. And it gives us the ability to work with students from all over the world, which we're very grateful to. And we have from time to time, we have people from Europe and from other countries that sign in. The hardest part is the time difference. You have to align with whatever time works the best for you, but it can be done as well. And so if you don't have a studio near you, or you don't have like good classes near you, that is an option of studying online. And then of course the third way is what I talked about earlier, is our Truthful Acting Online, which are digital courses where you can download and you take them online, but you take them at your own pace. It's not live with us, but actually when you sign on to Truthful Acting Online, you have access to our online community, so you still can ask questions, you can talk to other actors, you can do that as well. And that's worldwide. So, okay, so let me see. And good, Gino, I'm glad that I answered your question from earlier. All right, so let me go to another question. I still want to answer as many as I can. Okay, so here we go. It's like almost stemming from what we were talking about. Do I have to live in Los Angeles or New York to make it in the industry? The short answer is no, you do not. You do not have to live in one of those two areas. Now, the benefit of living in LA, New York, London, Melbourne, Australia, the benefit in Chicago here, the benefit to living in a city that specializes in the arts is that there are more opportunities. But it doesn't mean you have to live or relocate to one of those cities to make it as an artist. The biggest thing is training, and you can train in so many different places. You can do theater just about anywhere. Even small towns will have theater, typically in some form, even if it's a church theater or something along that. But there's opportunities to perform. Now with online training, you can train just about anywhere. So you have the ability to train from anywhere you want. And then it's about getting an agent and then having representation and doing auditions. Most auditions now, at least first auditions, are online. Again, the pandemic brought things online, and the industry saw an efficiency for it, and so they kept the things that were working. So now, even when you're auditioning for LA or New York or London or some of the bigger areas, especially film in LA, is you can submit a video audition. Whether it's live online, the audition, or whether they're asking you to record yourself and submit it in, you could do that from anywhere. So this gives you the ability to start your career from any place. Now, if you get an opportunity to work on a show and the show is in LA, well, you may consider relocating to LA, at least on a short-term basis, because you need to be there every single day. If you're going to do a show and it's on Broadway in New York, well, you may want to relocate to New York or one of the boroughs because you're going to be there every single day. So those things I would then look at. But you do not have to move there ahead of time. Get your training first. Get your experience first. And what I always tell my actors is once you get your experience, you'll know what the next step is for you. I mean, you'll feel it, where you should be. You're almost going to be pulled somewhere. And wherever you're being pulled, that's where you should go. All right, next question. How do you deal with rejection? And what advice would you give to future actors to keep them pursuing their dream? Okay, so rejection. So first of all, let me just answer it very directly. Rejection is a normal part of the industry. But let me give you a deeper answer. The deeper answer is there really isn't rejection. Right? On the surface, that's how we look at it, because it's like we go to an audition and then at the end of the day, they give the part to somebody else. We don't get it. Therefore, we feel like we were rejected. We look at it in that negative terminology. But that's honestly not the case. It's not that you were rejected. It's that the other person was chosen or the other person was awarded the part. That in no way reflects on you. And I know we think it does. Well, how can it not reflect on me if they gave it to somebody else? Well, when we're casting for something, so like when I'm directing something and I'm doing holding a casting, either for film or for stage, I have to think about the entire product, meaning the entire play. I have to think about the interactions of the characters. I have to think about the relationships. I have to think about what does the audience see, and is this the vision I want them to have? Do these two characters line up together? Are the ages appropriate? There are so many things that go into the decision that are completely out of your control. And in the end, when I need to make a decision, I typically have a handful of really qualified actors for every part. And I have to decide, I have to make a choice. And it's a completely subjective choice. I have to make a choice of who I'm going to select from this big group of actors when all of them are qualified. Every single actor I could choose is qualified. My job, which is one of the hardest jobs as a director, casting director, one of the hardest jobs we have, is choosing who gets that opportunity. It's difficult because we know if I have 5 actors I'm choosing from, I know I'm disappointing 4. That's tough. That's very difficult to do. I don't want anyone to be hurt. I don't want anyone to feel down. I'd rather people just feel real good and say, listen, you did a great audition. You're a great actor. I have to go in a different direction because of just the optics of the film. This other actor maybe paired up better in a relationship. This one just felt better for this part. Doesn't mean you're a bad actor. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. This one feels better for me subjectively as the director for what I'm trying to create. So this is something that we learn, and it takes a while to learn this because many actors, especially early on, become very disappointed when they don't get an opportunity, and they do feel this thing called rejection. But we try to teach them over the years that we train actors. We try to teach over and over, you're not being rejected. You just weren't right for this part. And what I also try to tell actors is you don't want to be cast in something you're not right for anyway. You won't have the best experience. You won't make the best product overall. And if you didn't get cast for this, don't worry, there's something else you will. There's something else down the road that will be the one for you. And you'll get that one. Be supportive. in the industry. Be supportive of everyone else. If you go to a casting, you don't get it, but someone else does, be extremely supportive to them when they do. That's an amazing quality to have in this industry, is to support all of the other artists. And then, because then in turn, hopefully they will be supportive to you when it's your turn. And if you keep working at it, it will be your turn. What is your best advice to tackle auditions? All right, so in our studio, we have auditions 1 and auditions 2, which is essentially 8 months of auditions training. That's how important auditions are, and that's how difficult they are. So, but the best advice, it was interesting. The best advice actually came from, well, one of my mentors, Larry Silverberg. And he said in a class one time when someone asked, hey Larry, what's the best way to learn how to audition? And he said very simply, and at first it was funny, I thought it was a joke, but he was dead serious. He said, if you want to learn how to audition, learn how to act. And that was it. And it was like, well, what do you mean by that? And what he meant was auditioning is just a microcosm, a small piece of acting. But everything we do in the audition is the same thing we do when we're acting. So that's some of the things that we have to look at. So if you're doing a monologue for a stage audition for a theater, well, a monologue is something we do in theater all the time. If you get cast in a show, most of the time you're going to have a monologue you're speaking on stage. So it's our way of evaluating, how do you handle standing on stage? How do you handle saying these words? How do you handle your imaginary circumstances around you and your environment? How do you handle it? How's your voice? How's your stage presence? We're just evaluating all these things through a monologue, but we're looking at the same thing we would look at if we were directing you in a show. Because as an actor, we stand on stage and conduct a monologue. In film auditions, you go in and you're standing on a mark and you're working with a reader that's off camera and there's people watching you. And it feels very weird, but it's like, well, what I try to tell actors is no. This is no different than when you're on a film set. You're standing on a mark. You're working with somebody that's off camera. The camera's off to the side looking at you. There are people watching you, which is the crew, the director, the cinematographer. It's the same thing. It's just a smaller, simpler version. So when Larry said, learn how to act, right? To learn how to audition, learn how to act. That's what he meant. Because once you understand acting as a general tool, as a skill, you can then bring that and bring it down to what you need to do to audition. So that's the biggest thing. Second, real quick, there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with auditioning, but try to keep your focus outward. Take deep breaths before you go in there. Breathing, as sometimes my students will think it's silly. I'm saying to take a deep breath. It's like, no, taking a deep breath moves oxygen through your body very quickly, and a lot of it. So take a deep breath through your mouth. Move all of that oxygen. When you supply enough oxygen to your body, especially to your brain, everything slows down, which means the anxiety will slow down, and you'll be able to go in and do what you can do. And then that's it. Go in and do what you can do. Have fun at it. Don't worry about it. You're not going to get every audition that, right? Great actors, might get booked one time out of 10. So we go on many, many, many auditions throughout our career. So don't worry about the rest. All right, wow, we've already reached our time, but I'm going to go through these last questions. We'll do it rapid fire and see what I can do. Okay, will it be easy to get an opportunity in the industry after studying? Well, it will be more easy to get an opportunity. Training goes a long way. So when you have training, you're going to know how to navigate the industry. You're also going to know how to, the do's and the don'ts, and you're going to feel more confident when you go into an audition or when you're actually performing. So training will make it easier from that standpoint. Now, it doesn't mean that people are just going to cast you on the spot. You still have to audition and showcase what you can do. But yes, training makes the entire process much, much easier. What are your greatest tips for studying, understanding, and internalizing a character for a role? Mannerisms, histories, values, etc. All right, I'll take that one first. So what we teach at our studio is an entire process for everything: physicality, voice, emotion, psychology, which we learn how to then bring to the character. The biggest thing that we do is this thing called personalization. Personalization is a process where we take the script, which is the character on a page, and we make all of the things revolving around this character: relationships, environments, events, all of those things, and we have a process of making it our own. Meaning, not us, the character, us, the actor, us, the human being. We personalize it. We use a series of journaling and other exercises to get us into that state. And so that really helps going through. And then as you learn acting, you're going to learn physicality, which will help you with mannerisms. History is going to be research that you do. Values and all of those things will be through the personalization and scene analysis. So really it comes down to study a deep process. There's not a quick way into this industry. The great actors have been studying for years because there's just such a broad area. I said it's mental analytical, it's psychological, emotional, physical, vocal, and technical. The 6 essential pillars of acting. And we have to study all of them. And then once you have that, you'll be able to then bring a fully developed character to life. And then also, what was the hardest role you've had to figure out? That's a good question. The hardest role I've had to figure out. Well, I would say, I don't know, they're all hard. they're all hard when I first pick up the script. Just to give you a little insight, when I first pick up a script, I'm excited, but I'm terrified. Because I know I have to start the process from scratch, and sometimes it feels like it's very overwhelming. It's like, wow, look at all these words I have to learn. Look at all, so it's very overwhelming. But then it's like, nope, just get to work, and I get to work. I work on the process of memorization. I work on all of that. So probably the most fun I've had, and the kind of the strongest journey and the most difficult role at the same time, was a play called American Buffalo by David Mamet. And I got to play the role of Teach, who's a very rough character in South Chicago in the 1970s. And that was, physically, vocally, emotionally, it was there was a lot that I had to put in to develop that role. It was one of the best times I've had, but it absolutely was difficult, meaning all those different aspects, figuring it out. All right, we have one more question, and that is, when an actor is struggling with their performance due to a lack of experience, what are some of the best practices directors can use to help them improve their performance? Okay, so coming from a director standpoint, so when you're first starting out, you're going to struggle. When you've been working for 10 years in this industry, you're going to struggle. So just know that the struggle is real. As I just said, every time I pick up a new part for myself, I'm terrified by it. I go through a whole series of anxiety, and I have my struggles on certain things. Of course we do, because we're human beings that are trying to then step into another human being's life. We're aligning ourselves. There's so much work to do on that. So it can be a bit overwhelming. But the biggest thing a director can do, the same thing you can do as an actor, is calm yourself down, focus on the work, focus on the journey. It's one thing at a time. If you're just starting out and you don't know anything else to work on memorization. Once you memorize your part, I mean deeply memorize, where it's second nature to you. You can say it quick, as fast as you can, without one blur, one flaw, anything, one error. Just go through it as fast as you can. We call it fast and flat. But memorize, memorize, memorize. That will give you confidence. A director's job is to get the actor out of their head. Meaning, we don't want to be thinking while we're acting. We want to be here, present, really talking, really listening. And so a director's job is to get the actor to stop thinking. So as a director, what I do is I incorporate memorization exercises into my rehearsals. So when the actors come in, we work on memorization, because I know how strong of a confidence builder that is. And then with everything else, if I'm doing blocking, which is the arrangement of actors on a stage, if I'm going through blocking, again, we'll work on it over and over and over until it's second nature. And then I also include the actors in collaboration in talking about analysis and talking about relationships and what are the what are the characters fighting for, what do they want. We have so many very in-depth discussions. I do it sitting around a table. So many conversations with the actors to get their input and to see how they feel, and then together we develop this thing. And that really helps actors as well. I love working with actors in a collaborative way. I don't want to be a director that tells an actor what to do. I'd much rather work on it together and discover it together at the same time. So that's what I would say about that. Okay. Wow, we went through a lot today, but it was fun. I really enjoyed doing this. I was happy to answer all of your questions. Those that were submitted ahead of time. Those of you on the chat, which I really, really appreciate. I love when you interact with me on the chat. If you have any other questions or you'd like to know more, we have you can email us at info@truthfulacting.com. You can, of course, go to our website, which is just truthfulacting.com. We have tons of information on there. Or you could call or text us at the number below. If you call or text us, you will get Samantha, who's been on with you on the chat. She handles all of that. She's the one you'll be texting. She's the one you'll be calling. And truthfully, if you're emailing, she's the one you're emailing. She handles all the communication in and out. And she'll be more than happy to talk through anything with you. We do have a semester coming up. We typically start our semesters in January, May, and September. So we have one coming up where we're enrolling our Master Meisner program, and that's going to be a live semester. That's either live in person or live online via Zoom, all at the same time. And we're Eastern time, New York time, but we do have morning classes in our time zone and then evening classes as well. So if you'd like to join us that way, please go to our website or call or text Sam, and we'll be happy to give you any information that you have. In addition, you can also check out on our website our digital courses if you want to take anything at your own pace and see what that's all about as well. So, but thank you so much for joining us today. We really, 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 I love having you here. I love doing this and being able to do this with you. And I hope you reach out. I hope you stay in touch, and I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.